and let them know two can play this game.
We've all wondered what it would take to survive where the land itself seems determined to erase you. Not visit, not vacation, survive. In 2013, Life Below Zero arrived on the National Geographic Channel and answered that question in a way no glossy survival show ever had. This wasn't staged drama or controlled wilderness. This was real isolation, sub-zero temperatures, roaming predators, endless darkness, and miles of frozen silence between you and the nearest help. Among the hunters, trappers, and off-grid pioneers featured on the series, one woman quickly became impossible to ignore. Sue Aikens. From the first episode, Sue didn't feel like someone playing a role. She felt like someone who had already survived 10 lifetimes before the cameras arrived. Living alone at Kavik River Camp, deep in the Alaskan Arctic, she managed one of the most remote outposts in North America. No neighbors, no quick escape, just her, the wind, and whatever wandered out of the tundra. Viewers were fascinated. How does someone choose that life? And maybe more importantly, what kind of life chooses someone like that? Long before television crews ever set foot near her camp, Sue's story had already been shaped by instability and abandonment. As a child, she moved constantly. There was no steady home, no sense of rooted belonging. After her parents separated, she ended up in northern Alaska with her mother. But even that fragile stability didn't last. At a young age, Sue was left to fend for herself in an environment that doesn't forgive weakness. The Arctic is not sentimental. It does not care how old you are, how prepared you feel, or how unfair your circumstances might be. One of the defining moments of her youth came when an older Alaskan resident handed her a rifle and delivered a blunt message. Learn to hunt, or you won't survive. There was no sugarcoating it. In that moment, childhood ended. Survival became a daily responsibility, not a distant concept. She had to learn how to read the land, track animals, manage supplies, and protect herself. Mistakes weren't inconveniences. They were potentially fatal. Over time, she did more than adapt. She mastered it. Sue ran extensive trap lines, stretching hundreds of miles. She cared for teams of powerful Alaskan malamutes that helped her navigate the wilderness. She learned how to stretch limited resources through brutal winters where temperatures plunged far below zero. Yet even in the middle of that relentless survival cycle, she evolved emotionally. At one point, after years of trapping foxes for fur, she decided to stop. She began seeing them not just as income, but as part of the ecosystem she lived within. It was a quiet shift, one that revealed the complexity behind the hardened exterior viewers would later come to know. Before Life Below Zero, Sue had already brushed against national attention. She appeared on Sarah Palin's Alaska, a reality series connected to former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. The appearance wasn't planned as a stepping stone to fame. It happened after a hunting trip brought television production into her orbit. Later, she also appeared on Flying Wild Alaska, a show following the Tweto family's bush airline operations. Each appearance added another layer to her growing reputation. Her camp became known as both a survival outpost and an adventurous destination for those willing to brave the Arctic. So when producers from BBC Studios approached her about joining a new survival series, the foundation was already there. They were interested in her authenticity, her raw, unfiltered existence in one of the harshest places on Earth. Sue agreed, but not blindly. She valued her privacy fiercely. According to her, early production respected that. They called before filming. They documented her life, rather than rewriting it. When Life Below Zero premiered, it struck a chord. The show didn't glamorize isolation. It revealed its cost. And Sue became one of its central pillars. Viewers watched her repair generators in brutal windstorms, prepare for months of darkness, fend off predators, and welcome the occasional traveler who found their way to Kavik. She was blunt, sharp-tongued, often humorous, and unapologetically independent. She wasn't trying to be likable. She was trying to live. But behind the steady image of resilience, cracks were forming, and they wouldn't stay hidden forever. In 2015, Sue was involved in a serious snowmobile accident while crossing an icy river. Traveling at a moderate speed, she struck an unexpected ridge in the ice, causing a violent crash. The incident, along with its aftermath, later aired on Life Below Zero. Viewers saw the pain, they saw the recovery. But what they didn't initially see was the controversy that would follow. 2 years later, in 2017, Sue filed a lawsuit against the Los Angeles production unit of BBC Studios. She claimed the accident and certain scenes had been filmed without her full consent. She alleged that she had warned producers about dangerous conditions before the crash and that her concerns were not taken seriously. Even more troubling were claims that after the accident, production decisions prioritized dramatic footage over immediate medical urgency. The lawsuit shocked fans. For years, Sue had appeared to be a willing and even enthusiastic participant in the series. Now she was challenging the very production company that helped bring her story to millions. Questions swirled. Why wait 2 years to file? What really happened during those tense moments on the ice? In remote environments, where risk is part of daily life, the line between documentation and exploitation can become dangerously thin. While legal tensions unfolded, another looming threat emerged, one that had nothing to do with television. In 2017, discussions intensified around opening parts of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling. Development proposals sparked concerns across Alaska. For Sue, whose camp operated in proximity to protected federal land, uncertainty became a new adversary. Though she owned the structures at Kavik River Camp, she did not own the land itself. If policies shifted, her entire livelihood could be disrupted. True to form, she prepared a backup plan. She bid on and purchased an abandoned cabin in another part of Alaska as a safeguard against potential displacement. It wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Anyone who survives in the Arctic understands that relying on one plan is a luxury you cannot afford. You prepare for the storm before the sky darkens. Yet nature was not finished testing her. Long before television fame, Sue had survived something that still sounds almost unbelievable. In 2007, she was attacked by a bear near her camp. Despite taking precautions with food storage and waste management, the powerful scent of lingering odors can travel for miles in the Arctic. When the bear struck, it mauled her viciously, dislocating her shoulder and hip, biting into her head. There was no one nearby to help. No quick rescue. No emergency room within reach. Injured and alone, she dragged herself back to camp. And then, in a move that feels more mythic than real, she armed herself and tracked the bear. Eventually, she killed it. But the ordeal wasn't over. With severe injuries and no immediate medical access, she waited nearly 10 days for help to arrive. 10 days in isolation, holding herself together through sheer willpower. In 2011, she suffered a serious leg injury, requiring surgery and months away from camp. When she returned, she discovered thousands of dollars worth of fuel had been stolen. Fuel meant to sustain her through the brutal winter. With only days before heavy snowfall, she had to scramble for emergency resupply. In the Arctic, losing fuel isn't just inconvenient. It can be catastrophic. And then came the global disruption no one predicted. The COVID-19 pandemic. Travel restrictions and social distancing measures dramatically reduced visitors to her remote camp, cutting into a critical revenue stream. Isolation she could handle. Financial instability was a different kind of threat. Instead of retreating, she doubled down on maintenance. She replaced aging systems, upgraded infrastructure, reinforced shelters, and adapted. When gardening efforts failed due to unpredictable weather, she turned to foraging and legal hunting to secure food for winter. Through every setback, legal battles, political uncertainty, physical trauma, economic disruption, one thing remained constant. She stayed. But beyond the wilderness and controversy lies another question people rarely discuss openly. What does a life like that cost, emotionally? Strength is easy to admire from a distance, but living it, day after day, year after year, leaves marks most people never see. For all the toughness viewers witnessed on Life Below Zero, Sue Aikens' story isn't just about surviving the cold. It's about surviving loss, loneliness, and the kind of silence that forces you to confront yourself, whether you want to or not. While the Arctic shaped her physically, her personal life tested her emotionally. Sue has been married twice and is a mother of two. Her first marriage ended in tragedy when her husband died from brain cancer. Loss like that doesn't fade. It settles in. It becomes part of how you see the world. For someone already accustomed to isolation, grief can either break you or harden you further. In Sue's case, it seemed to do both. Her second marriage lasted 17 years, but it carried a fundamental tension: Alaska. Her husband struggled with the remote, unforgiving lifestyle that Sue felt called to live. Eventually, they chose to separate rather than force each other into unhappiness. What stands out is that they remained friends. There was no public bitterness, no dramatic collapse, just two people recognizing that love alone doesn't always bridge incompatible lives. Even after their divorce, they maintained mutual respect until his passing. For viewers who only saw her commanding presence in the Arctic, these chapters reveal something deeper. Independence isn't the same as isolation, and strength doesn't mean someone doesn't feel the weight of absence. In later years, Sue formed a connection online with a man named Michael Heinrich. At first, they were simply friends. He was married at the time, and their relationship remained platonic. But after his divorce, their bond grew into something more. Unlike her previous relationships, this one unfolded with full awareness of what her life entails. They didn't rush into dramatic changes. They maintained separate spaces while building something steady. In 2020, she publicly acknowledged their relationship, signaling that even someone who thrives alone in the Arctic still values companionship. But while her personal life slowly found balance, her public life remained complicated. The lawsuit she filed in 2017 cast a shadow over her relationship with the production behind Life Below Zero. Though legal disputes in reality television aren't uncommon, this one felt different because of the stakes involved. When you film in extreme environments, risk isn't theoretical, it's immediate. Sue's allegations suggested that the balance between storytelling and safety may have been compromised. Whether every detail played out exactly as claimed became a matter for the courts. But the message was clear. Even the toughest survivalist has limits. Interestingly, despite the legal conflict, Sue continued to appear on the show. That fact alone fueled speculation. Had things been resolved privately? Were agreements renegotiated? Or had both sides simply recognized that their success was intertwined? For viewers, it underscored a complicated truth. Reality television may capture real danger, but it also operates within contracts, production schedules, and business pressures that most audiences never consider. Meanwhile, Alaska itself remained unpredictable. The debate surrounding oil and gas drilling near the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge continued to evolve over the years. Political administrations shift, policies change. Each shift creates ripple effects for those living closest to the land. For Sue, the uncertainty reinforced something she had always practiced: prepare for displacement, even if it never comes. Her decision to purchase a secondary cabin wasn't paranoia, it was strategy born from experience. When your entire livelihood depends on land you don't legally own, security becomes fragile. And then there's the myth that her life is glamorous because it's televised. Cameras may capture breathtaking auroras and sweeping tundra landscapes, but they don't fully capture the mental toll of extended darkness. Arctic winters can mean months with minimal sunlight. Isolation stretches longer than most people can comfortably imagine. Even resilient individuals face moments of doubt. Sue has spoken openly about the psychological challenges of living alone for extended periods. The stillness can sharpen your thoughts, both good and bad. There is no distraction, no noise to drown out internal questions. Yet perhaps that's why viewers connect with her so deeply. She doesn't pretend it's easy. She doesn't romanticize suffering. When things break, she fixes them. When storms hit, she braces. When she's injured, she adapts. It's a pattern repeated across her life. Consider the fuel theft incident again. Returning from surgery in 2011, only to discover that thousands of dollars worth of fuel had vanished, wasn't just financial betrayal. It was existential threat. In the Arctic, fuel equals heat. Heat equals survival. With winter approaching fast, she had days, not weeks, to secure replacement barrels before blizzards sealed her off. That kind of pressure would overwhelm most people. For Sue, it became another entry in a long ledger of challenges endured. Even the COVID-19 pandemic, which paralyzed businesses worldwide, couldn't freeze her completely. With fewer clients visiting Kavik River Camp, revenue dipped sharply. But rather than close down, she pivoted inward. She upgraded plumbing systems, reinforced infrastructure, replaced worn materials, and improved storage setups. When harsh weather ruined her gardening efforts, she relied on wild plants like fireweed and legally hunted caribou to stock provisions. Survival, for her, is always proactive. Of course, critics exist. Some viewers question how alone anyone truly is when a production crew is periodically present. Others debate how much of the show is edited for narrative tension. But editing cannot fabricate a bear attack that left her with severe injuries. It cannot invent the freezing wind that cuts across the tundra. It cannot script 10 days waiting for rescue after a mauling. Reality television can shape a story, but it cannot manufacture the Arctic. So what really happened to Sue Aikens? The simplest answer is this: she endured. She survived abandonment as a teenager. She built a life in one of the harshest climates on Earth. She faced down predators, human and animal. She entered a legal battle with a major production company. She prepared for possible government displacement. She weathered global pandemic shutdowns. She loved, lost, divorced, rebuilt, and loved again. What complicates her story is not scandal, but resilience. In a world where many people seek security and predictability, Sue repeatedly chooses uncertainty. Not because it's easier, but because it feels honest. The Arctic strips away illusion. It demands accountability. If you neglect preparation, you suffer. If you ignore warning signs, you pay for it. There's something brutally transparent about that equation. And maybe that's the real reason audiences remain captivated. Her life functions almost like a mirror. Most of us will never face a charging bear or minus 40-degree temperatures. But we all face moments where survival feels metaphorical. Emotional winters, sudden losses, unexpected betrayal. Watching someone confront literal extremes reminds us that endurance is possible. Today, she remains closely associated with Life Below Zero and the legacy it built on the National Geographic Channel. Her presence helped define the series' tone: unfiltered, unsentimental, unpolished. Over the years, cast members have come and gone. Conditions have shifted. But Sue's identity, forged long before cameras arrived, remains rooted in the tundra. There's no dramatic disappearance, no secret scandal that erased her from the wilderness. The truth is less sensational and more powerful. She's still there, still adapting, still planning for the next storm. Because for Sue Aikens, Survival isn't a season of television. It's a lifetime commitment.